3-1. There we've begun. So the Falling Angel meets Rising Ape podcast. And I thought that was a really cool name for us. You know what I mean? And it's like there's no doubt between the two of us that you're the falling angel. I don't have many angelic type qualities. I think I'll happily relinquish that over to you. And I'm more the ape making my way out of the forests. Like a little chimpanzee trying to make my way out of the forest and and trying to make sense of the world. So I love that analogy. Just before we started, the topic of today would be on the personality trait agreeableness. So it's that is something that you are high in, and that's something that I am very low in. Okay, so I'm
a good place to start.
Definitely disagreeable, and it's disagreeable people don't do anything that they don't want to do, and know where they're going and know what it is that they want, and tend to aim for victory and high competition. And then I was like, like society has got a bit of a tilt towards it now, towards being more agreeable,
Mm-hmm.
So like the whole notion of being compassionate, that's something that's almost, it's very pervasive for me, just the whole entire message that we must all get along and understand one another and work together, and this whole notion of groups and stuff like that, So and if that's the case, then agreeable people would fit in better, And then
theoretically.
more than theoretically, But so it's like, okay, so where do you fall on the scale? Like, how agreeable are you actually?
I think if you had tested me 10 years ago, I would say I'd fall off the scale of agreeableness.
Really?
Because I had the impression that if I did what made you happy, I would be okay. I would fit in and I'd be happy and comfortable. And then as I've got older, I've realized that a lot of me doesn't fit with what everyone else thinks is okay. But that's part of the progression, I think. I think it's important. It's part of the that's the unfolding that's needed to happen, is for me. And that's why I kind of think when you say agreeableness is that there is an important component of people agreeing to a certain extent, but it doesn't work in the long run because everyone is so different, and that it doesn't accommodate everyone's uniqueness if we all have to just fit into the same mold. So I think as I've gotten older, I've been more comfortable being disagreeable, even though my first impulse is to go with what everyone else thinks is okay.
But it's like it's something that you need to work at.
Yeah.
Because it's like, the agreeable people are walkovers.
Easily.
They tend to be pushovers.
And any form of, any sort of power, anyone coming at me with a very strong energy, I'll hide away. And I can immediately retreat. And whatever you say goes. So it takes a lot of energy for me to kind of push back. So that... I always say there's a first gear and a second gear. My first gear is agreeableness, but there's a disagreeable part of me inside that's wanting to come and break free and push back, and I need to be able to switch gears, and that's what I'm learning, is to switch gears when I need to.
Yeah, my agreeable clients, the ones that are very high in agreeableness, are inevitably resentful also.
Oh, without a doubt.
And they feel like they are underappreciated by the world, and that they're always doing things for other people, and that they don't get the acknowledgement that they feel they deserve. Huh?
Yeah.
And then, and how did you find that in a business environment, being highly agreeable? Because that's the kind of thing that, it lends itself. So if you're high conscientiousness and high agreeableness, that just lends itself to abuse, basically, because those are the donkeys upon which many organizations are built.
Yeah. So how it plays out is I'm highly service orientated. So I'm the person you call when you need anything, and I'm reliable and I get things done. But then I'm also underpaid, and I'm also end up doing more than what I get compensated for. So often there's that dynamic. And again, for me, the resentment is always the red flag. As soon as I start to notice resentment, I know a boundary has been crossed that I haven't enforced. So it's a learning lesson. So I've had a lot of...
but you got well integrated. You know what I mean? It's, that stuff that you've had to learn over the way and practice.
Yeah. I had a client, and that came at me with lots of requests, and in my initial response, my first gear, agreeable, is
Yes.
like, I will deliver. I will work on Christmas. I worked on Christmas Eve for them because I wanted to support them and show them that I can help and all of that. So I already started the relationship off with bending my boundaries. And then there was another request, and I was like, this is a bit weird. This is a bit weird. And then another request, and started realizing that the more I allowed them to ask for what they wanted and get it, that they kept pushing the boundaries. And I had to learn to say no. And it was the most incredible learning lesson, because I think now if I come at it with a new client, there might be more boundaries in place than what there was.
I'm sure because it's the kind of thing that you worked on and are still working on, but it's like, my initial response is I can't even blame like companies or that sort of thing for taking advantage of that, like it's like
but I've always almost wanted them to do it initially, because that's my first gear. It's like,
because you can show, that's how you can show your worth.
Show my worth. Anything you need, just phone me anytime. I'm available all the time. So I've actually often my initial approach has given them permission to treat me that way. So
so that I can get my foot in the door at least, and then hopefully I can kind of work from that. But that's such a shitty negotiating tactic, It's like, that'll never happen, because like you come in so low already that even if you had to progress 100% from that, you still would be nowhere near what it is that you're worth.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's some interesting gender differences in agreeableness, obviously. So it's like the 10% of the most agreeable people in the world are all women.
Oh wow.
So there's not a single guy in there, and then the 10% of the most disagreeable people in the entire world are all men, and that actually constitutes the prison population. Seriously, it genuinely does, because it's also, because it's also almost, it's part of it is also like for aggression, and how aggression manifests in itself, and that's competing on the disagreeable side. It definitely manifests in competitive endeavors, Okay, so then it's like, what did I see? It was so interesting. So where did I hear this? There is, in order to be, for a woman to be in the 50th percentile of agreeableness in the male sample, she would need to be in the 80th percentile of disagreeable women to be in the 50th percentile of agreeableness in men.
Sure.
Yeah.
And we don't often get examples of what that looks like.
Yeah.
So our examples of women being on the disagreeable side is a bad thing for us growing up. I don't think I have a lot of examples in my family life of it being okay to disagree.
Really?
Yeah.
Jesus, my family was just that was all they were about. Like,
but that's it. So I also didn't see a positive example. So anytime I saw someone being disagreeable, it was frightening for me. So it really, it's hard to practice that side, because in my head there's only two sides. You're difficult or you're agreeable, and agreeable has all these more positive connotations. So for me it's about,
well, you're a nice person.
I know.
A nice
and
person.
Isn't that nice?
No, I don't know what must it do with nice?
Yeah, but then there's
like
also,
if I like you, I like you. You know what I mean? It's like, it's because I think you're good, or you're kind, or
yes.
you know what I mean, or you're solid, or I can rely on you, or that kind of thing. Nice.
But society rewards the niceness, the sweet and the kind, and that's it. Is that I think you get positive reinforcement from that. Well, I did.
That just nice sounds harmless.
Yeah.
And harmlessness is not a virtue.
But for me, nice is bland. And so that's also what I kind of found.
Well, dismiss it. Like I did, like things that are nice. I just, like it's hard for me not to dismiss them.
And so for me, it was always neutral. Because so for me it was like, if I stay under the radar and I meet everyone's needs, I'm not going to create any sort of yuckiness or weirdness. But then the difficulty comes in, well, what is it that I really want? What is it that I need? And then that's where the discomfort comes, is that I can't be nice and have what I want. And then I need to start creating something like...
Well, you need to know what it is that you want for starters. And nice people, or really agreeable people, know what everybody else wants and needs, and they just I mean, they can be so extreme that they have absolutely no idea what it is that they would like.
Oh, for sure. But that's the starting point, I think, for me, was to figure out what chocolate I liked and not. I knew what everyone else wanted. I didn't know what I wanted. And once I could figure that
Well,
out.
the answer's too much, but okay.
Once I could figure that out, then I have
For me as
a
well. Sorry,
place
in case it looks like I'm bashing here. So
No.
okay, this is true for me.
But then I can push back because I know what I'm standing on. And that's the hard part for me, is I need to decide the ground so what is it that I want and need, and then I can create a boundary around it. And then nice.
That's not that easy though. You know what I mean? Because it's just, it starts off as like some little kind of sensation within you, or like, and it's like, well, I mean, you need to kind of process that quite a lot, you know, and then even after that, then you have to try and find the words to be able to articulate that.
Yeah.
It's not a
and
trivial
you have
thing,
to be
eh?
comfortable with the consequence of it, because there could be a consequence of somebody disagreeing with what you have to say, which I think is the hard, because then there's
Well,
like
that's a test.
yeah,
That's the
and
ultimate
that's the
test.
change back. It's like a change back attack. It's like, oh, I don't like that. I'm going to go back to what was nice, because at least neutral isn't danger. It's not not creating stress and anxiety.
Yeah, it's neither here nor there,
Yeah.
but it's neither good nor bad. It's just
It's
nothing.
Yeah.
It's quite interesting on that, because like if I think in terms of conflict, and it's like, well, it's like and I think the tilt of agreeableness in women is so that they don't strangle the infants, you know, because because conflict is a horrific thing, you know, like, you know, if you have a little one, you know, that's, I mean, to be avoided at all costs. And there's a dimension of agreeableness for short-term conflict resolution, you know, and I think I think that is also, I think it's got it has a place, and it's like in the infant scenario, you know what I mean, like all conflict is bad, you know, and to be avoided, you know. And that's generally speaking short-term, immediate sort of conflict. But it's very poor at resolving medium to long-term conflict, you know. Because then it's like, well, if you just actually have this fight and this argument now, then it's like, well, then that makes for a better future, let's say, you know, because it's resolved, you know, and it doesn't start stacking.
Exactly. But, oh, we've touched something.
Nah, it's
Okay.
was it your leg?
No,
Wasn't it?
No.
What is my hand holding?
No. But it makes me think of females. Women traditionally, I think society, there hasn't been a place for women to speak out that way. So I think it has been a survival mechanism for women to be agreeable.
Look, I mean, it's got a strong social dynamic to it. You know what I mean? So that it's not inherently a weak thing. You know, I mean, there are states where it's like very good. So if you're trying to like rally up support and that sort of thing, the social network would just be so much stronger of somebody who is agreeable, in my view. You know, so I mean, there are things to be leveraged on that for sure. You know.
But then I think with all personality characteristics, in the extreme, there will always be downsides. So for all...
Fuck, man, there's downsides to each and every one. Like, you get this, but you'll lose out on this, you know?
But then I think the integration comes in being able to choose a behavior that works for a circumstance, rather than relying on a behavior to suit all circumstances. So for me, my agreeableness in my younger days was the only strategy I used. It was the only thing I had in my toolbox.
It's a one-trick pony. You know what I mean?
But now, to be able to integrate it, I can pick from the side that doesn't feel so comfortable, but it can get me a different result, which makes me more integrated, so I can choose a behavior that works best for a scenario.
Look, it's not great for corporate, you know, like, and look, if you, like let's say that if anybody's out there and they are like high in traits, like agreeableness, because it's like, you'll know an agreeable person when you meet them, because all they talk about is relationships and where they are in relationships and relational dynamics. You know, that's literally like, you know, that's at the forefront of their being. You know, but it's like, okay, so in a corporate landscape, it's like you'd have to be very careful of the, or not careful. You need to make sure, like, the environment in which you work would need to reward cooperation and collaboration, you know, and then you can leverage that.
You might be easily hurt by a corporate environment that is more cutthroat and more dominant and more, because I think that's
That
the
just
part
ends
of
in tears.
the corporate that doesn't agree with me. Because I think isn't everyone nice?
No.
Isn't everyone out to help each other? No?
Jesus, not a chance, man. You know what I mean?
But then
it's
that's also, I'm, again, because of my accommodating view of the world, I'm surprised when I get faced with that sort of behavior because my view is from that accommodating angle.
Well, I'm really trying not to be harsh or to be overly critical, but it's like that's a little bit naive in that way, you know.
But it is. I 100% agree. But it also is my safe zone. So it's the strategy I picked as a kid that kept me safe. So I just make sure everyone else is happy, so that keeps it safe. And as an adult, that strategy isn't dynamic enough to support me with the complexity of being an adult. So I have to stretch myself beyond that. I have to find boundaries. I have to say no. I have to stretch past what feels comfortable and learn new tool tricks for my toolbox. So, but the same goes for your side, is that you realize your side has lots of advantages, but it also has disadvantages.
For sure. No,
So
I've worked. And I've worked on that because it's not. Look, I mean, like where my trait disposition is, that's pretty much where it is. Like, but it's like, the repertoire of behaviors that I've integrated that move more towards, the agreeable side is, that's definitely been of benefit to me, because otherwise I'm just ruthless.
Yes, but also how do you manage to do that? Because I think that's an interesting component, is if someone's finding themselves on a side of the scale and they're realizing it's not working for them, how do you move it and shift it?
Well, the first thing is to accept, like where you are for starters. It's like the like with like you can't do anything with it until like you accept that is an inherent part of you, know. And it's like
there's no judgment about that part of you. It's like it's good or bad. It's just it is. Man,
you and I both have seen the mental gymnastics that people get up to and stuff like that, just to avoid acknowledging that they are somewhere on a scale. Let's say, whether it's conscientiousness, neuroticism, whatever it is, because it's like, I forget how sometimes I forget how intense it can be, to give somebody feedback, on their psychometrics, because you and I have been assessed to death.
Yes.
No, we have. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, and that wasn't like I'm low anxiety. I'm very, very low on the entire scale of neuroticism. So for me, it's like it wasn't a big deal to start off with. But in realizing that for like most people and stuff like that is an unbelievably stressful experience, and that's where agreeableness comes in, because then it's like, even though like the experience wasn't that comfortable for me on that side, but it's like I realize that other people. I mean, when you start checking perceptions on how they in their minds, how they thought that they should be, know.
Yeah.
And then this comes out and says,
yeah. But I think a lot of the personalities that I did in my younger years, if I did them again now, might reflect slight differences, because the way I answered the questions was to deliver a message too. As an agreeable person, it's like, well, what do you think? What do I think you want?
Who do you want me to be?
Yes, I will be whatever you want me to be.
Who do you need me to be?
Yes.
That's it.
But I think that's what makes psychometrics so anxiety-provoking for agreeable people, because it's like, well, what do you really want? Because I can be this, and I can be this, and I can be this. So
it's like pick a lane, man. Like,
I know.
It's like it's like, who are we gonna get today? It's. I don't know, like in my mind, I'm like, it has a space in all the other life spheres, but in the work sphere, that's a tough one, eh?
I think the challenge is, but I think it's the life lesson of that trait, is that you have to decide that you are an independent person, independent from everyone else, and that you also have a place to be able to decide what you like and what you don't like. Because I think that's the hardest component, is that I've learned growing up that I don't have needs. Everyone else's needs are more important than mine, and that's how I keep myself safe. So I think you need the challenges to keep reminding you that you have to decide what you want first.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not, you know, like, I mean, you and I speak about this like it's just like this, you know, but it's also the kind of stuff that, you know, like we've both worked on ourselves and still are and still continue to do so,
never
you know.
ending.
But I think that for like agreeable people that come to me, inevitably, like, or, you know, one of the things that we always work out is like, it's like how not to be a pushover and how to sort of stand up for yourself. And, you know, and that standing up for yourself, that doesn't mean throwing hand grenades, you know what I mean, into the boardroom and sort of running away, you know. And it's like slowly start, because it's also like, it's like a lot of what we do is guiding people towards what they are most afraid of, you know. And it's like that graduated sort of exposure and stuff like that you can do this. Yeah. It doesn't mean like you're not going to be like this dispositionally, but you need to know how to do this, you know what I mean? Because it's like you're literally negotiating on your own behalf.
Yeah, yeah.
Because if you don't, and it's also like if you don't, you will get taken advantage of. You know, that's like a con artist's dream.
Yeah, no. I'm a real target. But also the thing is that in my head, I need to understand there isn't only two options, disagreeable or somebody who's difficult, and then someone who's me. I need to be able to craft. So in my head, I only see two options. And part of the work that we do with people is to be able to help them create what a third option is. What is an integrated version of someone who's on the extreme here and on the extreme here? And what would that look like in a work environment? Yeah. And because if I have to suddenly be
the integrated person is the holy grail. Yeah. That's a holy grail. You'd rather be integrated than good.
Yes, yeah. But then it's about crafting it again in a way that works for you, because I'm not going to, after a coaching session, be assertive. Suddenly, like I went to one session and now I'm assertive and now Jill's really
healed.
difficult.
Let the healing begin.
But I can now begin to say that I've crafted what it would look like for me. So it doesn't look like the extremes, but assertiveness for me might be. So initially when I started practicing, it might be saying, "Oh, let me check my diary." So before agreeing to something straight away, it might be something as small as, "I'm just going to have a look at my diary and I'll let you know."
Okay, so what's happening there is like whatever's happening, don't immediately say
Respond. Yes. So my default would be to say yes up
Give
front.
yourself space.
Give yourself space. And then that is a reasonable ask for me to do as a suggestion. And once I realize like, oh my goodness, the world didn't blow up and they didn't not like me, I can actually say, that's actually quite interesting, and actually this opportunity doesn't work for me. Now how am I going to handle that? And I have time to think about it so that I can handle it in a way that feels authentic and congruent, rather than just and deal with the consequences later.
Yeah, so part of that is on the initial engagement where there's that kind of pressure to comply and agree, and you know, which is a natural thing. Yes. You know, when people engage, it's like, okay, just to give yourself a little bit of breathing room and stuff like that, where it's like, you know, I'll get back to you. Just I need to just run by a couple of things with some other potential meetings that I have, and it's and like the trick is to not lie while you're doing that either, you know, because it's not the point of being deceptive. But I have to say, I'd be happy if somebody to lie in that situation and not engage. I think that's already a win, you know.
Yeah, but I'm already giving myself permission to have a voice in the. I'm taking a seat at the table. I'm giving myself the option to even think about it. Yeah.
I'm not just a wallpaper.
I'm not just doing it. It's okay, because as long as it makes them happy, then I'm happy. And so it doesn't solve all the problems, but it at least starts you on a journey of saying, oh, okay, hang on, I can at least think about it before I say yes. And so I also find is that it's not that I'm changing who I am. So I'm not saying goodbye to who I know myself to be, because there's a lot of fear in change that I'm not going to be who I know myself to be. But I'm giving myself permission to stretch a little.
Well, yeah, it's actually kind of also sort of permission to grow. Like, I mean, there's more to you than meets the eye. Yeah. It's also okay. So like what I would say, like a benefit of agreeableness is school.
Yeah,
Like,
no.
if you know what I mean, if you want teachers to like you, and they've checked at this, hey? So it's so super interesting. So they had a look at, so it's like boys and girls who have it's the same level of IQ get marked differently. So the disagreeable ones and then the agreeable ones on the other side. The disagreeable ones get worse marks. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and that's a dispositional thing.
Yeah.
You know, because it's like, well, and I get it, and I'm not like I'm not shitting on teachers like on this kind of thing and stuff like that, because it's like, well, children that act favorably and in accordance with what's sort of happening and don't and on a pain to be around.
Yeah.
Well, you're gonna
they're gonna have a better impression.
You're gonna respond better to them. You know, it's part
but
of it.
also that is, can you see why it's such a smart strategy for someone to choose to be agreeable? Because then you can fly under the radar. You know, there's no real discomfort.
It has its place.
It's got its place, but then there are downsides. You know, there are big downsides with knowing what you really want. And your own integrity. I think that's the downside of agreeableness, is that you're not acting in your own integrity, you're acting through someone else's.
Yeah, well, that's just like living vicariously,
Yeah.
you know, because it's like, you know, the group before the individual, you know. It also lends itself to a more kind of group identity kind of aspect to that, you know, because it's like, it's the group's needs before my own, you know, and it's how do I best serve? You know, you mentioned earlier on that it's a service orientation, and it is, and it's like schooling for me was an utter disaster. Hey?
It was fun for me.
I'm bloody sure. I'm sure it was. Hey?
Yes.
Yeah. See,
I didn't stand out.
Tough time, man.
But also then, you know, if you think about from your side, from what were the advantages of that behavior? So that there has to be a
I only got that
payoff.
later, hey? Like it only, because there's structures and environments, and we spoke about, well, the environments that reward cooperation, and a classroom is definitely one of those environments, or definitely was when we went to school. That's for sure, you know. And it's like, and it's one of those things that if you separate yourself from the herd, well, you know, whether it's through merit or competence or just by being like different in some way, you do make yourself an immediate target. Yeah. So it's
But then when did you start finding the advantages of it?
Oh, when I was in university.
Oh, okay. And how did it?
I was just like, well, yeah, because like the annoying thing about being disagreeable in a kid is like. So it's like, well, why am I doing this? I'm doing this just because you're telling me to do this. Like, that's not good enough. It's and as a disagreeable kid, like, it's just like, nah. And there's nothing you can do to like make me. You're gonna have a tough time trying to get me to do that.
Encourages disagreements, eh?
Well, it did when I was there. But I don't think that they were actually ready for me either. You know what I mean? I was like, I interacted a lot. I think my classmates, so then it started paying off for me, like in a minute. But it's also like, you know, it has to do with like how I learn information, you know, and the information that I do take in, it's tested.
Yes.
It's tested. It's not just arbitrarily taken because X, Y, and Z. You know what I mean? So the knowledge that I've gained and the competence that I have is solid. It's robust. You know what I mean? It's not a fickle beast. You know.
So, but then, what are the downsides of it for you? If you incorporate, there are advantages, but what have been the downsides?
So, I mean, you work with first-time managers, eh? Okay, and it's like, well, like the agreeable ones have a tough time, you know. So it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, you know, if you get promoted to first-line manager, like it's like you have to be okay with people not liking you. For agreeable people, that's a problem. You know what I mean? Because you want people to like you. We need everybody to get along, you know. So for me to lead a group is no problem. It's absolutely no problem. It is the most natural thing for me to do. Like I don't bat an eye, and not just that. It's like I can because I'm able to face conflict and do it well and constructively and that kind of thing. So I've got, I've got I've got such a range of
Tools.
of constructive aggression that I know how to yield, particularly when you're competing for things, and that benefits all the people that I work with. Not just that, I also give extremely clear instructions on this is what we're doing, this is what I expect, and it's clear. So like the yardstick for success is clearly explicated, and that helps, and that helps. Yeah, and I wholeheartedly accept that, like, there's people that aren't going to like me.
And is that the
And I'm
biggest
okay with
downside?
that. Well, yeah, I'd like, who doesn't want to be well liked, and it's like, but
But it doesn't
But
impact your choices as much as it would mine.
no, but it doesn't bug me. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't like these people. I don't like, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
And I certainly accept that there's people who who are not a good fit. We wouldn't be a good fit for one another, because like just by me being me, like I'll light you up like a Christmas tree, That's not going to work.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's very direct and very forthright. And the problem is that, yes, from the outside in, it can look cruel, hey. You know what I mean? And it's like, I'm not a cruel person, but jeepers, it can bloody well look like that, And that's tough luck. That's tough luck. Like, it's like, well, if I have to look like the baddie in order to do something that's really important and stuff like that, well, then that's that. That's my cross to bear.
But I do think both sides need each other to learn. So I need your side to give me permission that I can tap that side of me, and you need my side to give you permission to tap the agreeable side when you need to as well. It's not like one side is better than the other.
No, there's situations in which the one would perform better than the other. That's just that's. I mean, that's not cast in stone, and that wouldn't be for every. That wouldn't be for every act, But it's like, there are, and it's not. Yeah, I mean, it's silly not to think that there's nothing that's advantageous about your polar opposite on the other side. I mean, that's just foolish, And yeah, and it's like, well, then the question becomes is like, well, from my side is, well, how would I maximally be able to exploit that to achieve goals? And I don't, and okay, and it's not, and that's to kind of maximize whatever that ability is, to the absolute full, But just by me using the word exploit sounds bad, It sounds like it's very manipulative, But it's not. It's about getting the absolute most out of whoever the people around me, their inherent traits. And if I can make use of that, then I'll try and I'll use it at 110% in every which way that I can. But it sounds harsh.
Yeah, but there's also a finesse that needs to happen with it, so that you don't close people down just in...
Or unnecessarily.
Huh? And it's like unwittingly. It's not like you intended to do that, but from my perspective, my unevolved little child that will easily hide in the corner, and just because your energy intimidated me because of my unevolved, there's some part of me that will shut down because it's strong, and don't want to, I'm uncomfortable with that. And that's the work of the disagreeable, is to realize that they can still have their voice heard, and they can still come at it strong, but in a way that doesn't shut other people down.
Yeah, well, that is the finesse part, and that's yeah. But I can tell you that if you're in a corner, I'd drag you out.
Yes.
Okay.
Which
we're gonna go play.
That's it. Is that again? It's I think there isn't a hard and fast rule as to what's good and what's bad, because in some instances I needed to be faced with people who were strong to make me realize that there were parts that needed healing, or that parts that I needed to work on, because I couldn't avoid dominant people my whole life.
Yeah, it's like, it's not that, like I care, hey? Like, and I care about people, and it's and I mean, look, the line of work that we're in, and I mean, it revolves very much around this, But one of the things is that is what it requires is for us to be as honest as we can possibly can, but the intentions matter here, because it's not about wielding the truth, to stab somebody repeatedly in the in the heart, making direct eye contact as as you do that. That's not the point.
But also, I think the point is that you're doing your own work, because I think with people in our field is that we recognize when we've stepped too far or not stepped enough. And when you're not doing your own work, you're not as aware of what's needed in the moment, because I think a lot of people in a corporate environment are just on a hamster wheel, and they're going, and they're behaving in ways that they're familiar with, and they're not even recognizing that it's not working. Whereas with us, I kind of feel our industry is pushing us to constantly do that work, so that as I say it, I realize, oops, I need to do something. The outcome of that action didn't go the way I wanted. So what action, how can I be more agile in the way in which I respond to each individual situation, each individual person, rather than there's one magic way of doing it.
You mean the blanket statement?
Yeah.
There's very few axioms that there's just very few axioms, full stop. That apply to most situations. So there's definitely not a blanket way of being, without developing. The other part is, look, in our field, it's female dominated. A lot. And well, what does that mean? That means that, overall, that there would be, again, it's tilted towards agreeableness.
Yeah.
And there's a part in that. I came up with sometimes impulsive compassion. That sometimes manifests from that, where I'm just I don't know whether that's necessarily the way to go, because it's also, for want of a better word, I also see us as guardians, for our culture, that we're also custodians in it, in that sense, and there's also responsibility to that, and there's definitely different angles that you can approach things, but the kind of cooperative part is look, you need to be able to compete. There is no doubt about that. And you also need to be able to get on. It's like Piaget's, the emergent ethics that happens when kids play games, What do they work? They learn the concept of fairness. Then it's how to play. And so how to compete, number one, and then how to cooperate, and then and then strive towards whatever the goal of the game is, and work together to achieve it. It needs both. There's no two ways about it. I had another client of mine who's actually scored very disagreeable. But was so shocked to see that, because he thinks of himself as a very agreeable, compassionate human being.
But also it's because there's a stigma associated with identifying with the disagreeable side as well. Maybe that means I'm not kind or not.
Yeah. It's like the asshole cluster lingers close.
Yes. Yeah.
And to be fair, sometimes in some stereotypes there is a bit of truth to that.
Yeah. But also it's because
would you like me? Hey, would you tell me if you did it? You would it?
But no,
bloody well would it?
But there is a nice way of being dominant, and there's a not nice way of being dominant. That's the thing. And there's a nice way of being agreeable, and there's a not nice way of being it. So I think that
there's a schmoozy way of both.
There's a schmoozy way of both, and I think there's an intimidating. There's someone who's in their power, which I think you can sometimes be in your power. You know what you want. You've got the desire, and I'm not putting up with people who don't see it the way I see it. There's that which can be authentic. And there can be my way or the highway, which is not inauthentic and rubs people up the wrong way.
Yeah. But there's a place for all those things there.
Yeah.
If you're at the top of some, I don't know, market analytic, you know what I mean? Some company where financial engineering takes place, you know, those environments are ruthless.
Yeah.
Ruthless.
But then I always say is that the appropriateness of the behavior is dependent on whether you're getting what you want. So does your behavior serve you in a way?
Well, is it also part of your job description in a way? You know
and
what I mean?
is it necessary for the environment? Because some environments require you to have a certain approach.
100%.
And so there
Like if
isn't
you
a
look at
one
people
size.
being
Yeah.
agreeable,
Yes,
you know, it's something that's
there
definitely
isn't
a benefit.
a one size fits all, but it's like, is my behavior serving me? Or is it creating frustration or overwhelm or anxiety? Or is it not getting me what I want? And in my case, that's an indicator that there's room for some stretch, it's not getting me what I want. I am being taken advantage of, or I'm being pushed to places where I'm not comfortable, or I'm resentful all the time. There's room for growth. Whereas you is like, well, if I'm getting what I want and people are happy with me and I'm delivering, okay, it's working for me under these conditions. But you might move into a new client and they're like, ugh, too much, too soon.
Yeah, look, I mean, it's a kind of thing like you know, like in terms of client match, you know, and you know, just as a general rule, it's like, you know, I mean, we have to vibe together. We're going to be working with, you know, we're going to be working in a very intimate sort of space here, you know, and it's like, well, you know, we're going to get to know one another. It's like you need to work out whether I'm trustworthy and whether. Okay, so whether you like me, whether I'm warm enough that you would share a secret with me. And then the second thing is, well, do you respect me? So in other words, like, do you perceive me as being competent? You know, and we need to kind of negotiate that kind of frame, you know, and there's like, well, there's people for whom that would work and there's people for whom that wouldn't. You know, there's people who rub me up the wrong way, and I'm like, oh, this isn't going to, like, I'm not the person for you. I'm not the person for you, because it's like you're doing things that are annoying me, and I don't mind saying that. But in order for us to resolve that, you know, you're going to be pissed off, and I'm irritated because this is what's sort of happening to me. And then it's like, or if people are aiming down. They're just bloody well determined to go down, and it's just they would like an audience and approval, perhaps from me, you know, that's kind of okay. And I'm like, it's when people are spinning out like that and they're heading towards hell purposefully, because that's what they're aiming at. They grab whatever they can grab on the way down, and you're not. There's
yes, they will use us as a scapegoat.
Not using me as you on your own. Then it's okay, you know. You just go, like, there are other people too, hopefully, which you're better suited to, you know. Yeah, I'll send them to your way, like, if you piss me off.
And then Joel will just take you on. But I've also had to learn the hard way that
no, I can wreck you, man.
So it is part of with the agreeable person's lesson is to,
because you take that stuff home, you know, and then that comes out with your kids and your family and your dog, and you know. That sort
but
of
also
stuff,
what's so hard is you keep trying to please, and because you think being agreeable is the gold standard, and when it doesn't lead to a place where everyone's happy and they're still unhappy, it's really hard. So
that's like sleepless nights.
Yes,
you know, that's
but it often doesn't have. It's often because you hadn't put a boundary in place initially.
Rules, boundaries, limitations. Yeah. Okay. Well, okay. So I think I mean, agreeableness is a very deep topic, but I think we can actually. Oh wait, so it's like the disagreeable person who believed he was agreeable.
Yes.
You know, and that was like, and that was the whole thing, is because like wants to be a good guy. You know what I mean? Wants to be a good guy, and you know what I mean.
But how can you? Why can't you be disagreeable and a good guy?
But well, like, loved.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, like, you know, like people like you really like me, and you know, like, and I'm that person. I'm the go-to person, and and it's like, and one of the things, and it's so weird, but battles to say no. And it's like so weird, because like dispositionally, it's like it's really there, and then it's like, well, what's going on, you know,
That's
what's
so
what's going
interesting.
on, because it doesn't actually make sense.
But I can have all parts in me. That's the thing that I think people don't understand, is I can have a part of me that is disagreeable, a part of me that's agreeable, part of me that can say no, can't say no. But I mustn't reject any one of those parts, because I can choose to use them at any moment. But the problem comes in is when I'm rejecting that part of me that is disagreeable, and I'm trying to identify with the part that is more socially acceptable, I create this internal disharmony and a conflict, and like this, like I'm still
It
know what to
hijacks you,
do.
man. It's
And
like the mental gymnastics that you need to like work around with that are inevitably infinitely worse.
Yeah. And it really can sometimes be as simple as, it's okay. You know, you can have that and have that.
Yeah.
And there isn't anything wrong with it. It's not something that's bad or wrong, because there's a part of him that thinks it's bad to be disagreeable.
Yeah.
Even though it's part of his truth.
Yeah. Well, it's one of his truths. This is yeah, but it's and it's I mean he's made remarkable strides, and then like I mean the shift between being taken advantage of to absolutely nobody taking advantage of him was just like, with that realization, like it happened so quick. It was like, oh, fantastic, man,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Great, like, 'cause he's a hyper driven, and he'll be remarkably successful one day, as long as he doesn't try and like falsely people please, because it's false. There's an inauthenticity to that, you know.
But there's also, it's being driven by an outcome that you think you're going to get. So if I do this, then I'll get that, which means I'll have this. And that outcome never comes. That thing that you think that you're going to get because you did the nice thing, it doesn't actually come, when you actually could have just asked for what you wanted immediately, and then more likely got what you wanted.
Then that's where resentment lies, man.
Yeah.
That's where resentment lives, eh?
But it's
I
also,
feel
it's not something
undervalued and unappreciated, and I just do everything for everybody else I can.
no one else
Yeah,
helps
there's
you.
like maybe one person will say thank you for your thing and live for approval, hey?
Yeah.
Live for like, oh, I was noticed, acknowledged, and that kind of thing like that, you know?
Yeah. But
And
it's a
it's
black hole, because it never really fills
Yeah.
the part of you that you're wanting to be filled.
100%. And it's not about not wanting approval, eh? Like I mean, we need approval. You just don't want the bad kind. Huh?
But the thing is that the approval for you would be a different thing than what it would be for me. For me, it's validating my worth. For you, it just feels nice. You know, it's like, oh, that's nice to know. Thanks. I already knew that whereas me, there's a component of that actively seeking it, because it's confirming
Okay.
what I don't think I have.
Oh, okay. Yes. Yeah. No. I hear what you're saying. Yeah. The value valence is vastly different. It's not that it's not seen or that it's not dealt with or acknowledged and stuff like it. It's just the weighting of it and the importance of it is different.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think so. That's for the personality trait agreeableness. I think we covered a broad range of that. Thanks. And we'll move on to the next part. Okay. Cool.